Is there anything you can do to protect your kids from Wi-Fi in schools? You're listening to the 2025 EMF HAZARDS Summit. My name is Nick, the EMF Guy Pinot, and this is the EMF HAZARDS Summit, Protect Your Children. In this presentation, we address the journey of a courageous mom who isn't afraid to do her own research and take action in order to create a healthier environment for her kids. We talk all about how to get schools to consider removing Wi-Fi or greatly reducing its power and therefore the risks associated with this technology. Zen Honeycutt is the founding executive director of the nonprofit Moms Across America, a national coalition of unstoppable moms with the motto, Empowered Moms, Healthy Kids. I'm here today with Zen Honeycutt. Zen, how are you?
I'm great, Nicholas. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all your listeners. I so appreciate you.
Well, I think, you're kind of the perfect person to be on this EMF Hazards 2025 because the topic this year is Protect Your Children, and you're behind the organization Moms Across America. So please let us know a little bit more about how you came to become an activist in this space of environmental toxins. And I know you have a personal story with your own children, which is, I think, the case of many people listening to this. So please let us know what happened there with your children.
Sure. Thank you, Nicholas. Well, like probably millions of mothers or parents or grandparents, I feel like my family just got hammered with all of it. We've got the food allergies when we were little. We got the vaccines when the kids were little. We trusted our doctors. They had injuries from that. We ate the GMOs and the glyphosate. And so all of those things combined led us into a health journey that I never expected to be in. My background is actually in art and design. I did not expect to be a nonprofit director and a full-time activist. So this was an unexpected turn of events. But, as the saying goes, a worried mom does better research than the FBI. I sort of, I took that on. And when you're worried for your kid's health, one of my kids almost died from pecans in the stuffing when he was small. And so I took on activism around food. And then as Moms Across America grew from raising awareness about how you can heal, you can recover from allergies and autism symptoms and autoimmune issues through eating organic food, we had a lot of people tell us you need to address EMFs. And I was quite resistant for a while because, I only have so much bandwidth. I just couldn't really grasp it. But I had one of our board members take it on and connect with some EMF experts. We published an article on it. We got some great feedback. And then it happened to me, right? It started affecting me in my local town in Mission Viejo. They started putting up small cell towers. And I got the radio, the Safe Technologies detector, and I could see it was over 2.5 million just driving by a car, for that small cell tower. And then when the smartphones came out, I did the detection on them, and I could see, wow, it's over 2.5 million. And so the cell phones I became very aware that the cell phones had the same amount of radiation, or at least the same amount of radiation as one of these 5G towers. And so we really fought the city on that, and I can go more into those details later, but just a brief overview. We fought the city on that. We're not successful. That was part of the reason why we left. And but we did make a lot of headway in the meantime in raising awareness. And then we moved to Asheville, North Carolina, and little did we know, we did escape a lot of the health freedom restrictions and the inability to grow food and all of that, but we flew into a hornet's nest of Wi-Fi because our county, Buncombe County in North Carolina, actually won a national technology award. The school technology director did, for having wireless access points in every classroom, being the first county to have that. And I'll go into the details of why that is completely unnecessary and harmful. But that when it happened to me personally is when, both in Mission Viejo in California, when I lived there, and then in the school system, it's when I really dove deep into it and talked to a lot of experts and interviewed a lot of people and had a personal experience fighting the school system, with the Children's Health Defense lawyer that really I think a lot of people could learn from and take action based on some of the things that happen.
I think this is a perfect segue, kind of talking about Wi-Fi in school. You were in the belly of the beast, the worst state with Wi-Fi in school. A lot of parents tell me, I hear about Wi-Fi in school, I know what you're saying, but what can we do about it? So how did you approach this problem of, let's say your children are in school, they're exposed to Wi-Fi. Did you focus on what's at home? Did you talk to the school board? How did you approach this kind of almost unsurmountable problem here?
Yeah. Well, first, yeah, thanks for asking because it does first start at home, right? Because that's where our children sleep and that's where they heal and grow at night. And so that's the most important space to have be free of Wi-Fi. If you don't turn off your Wi-Fi at night, you could absolutely get hardwired. That would be the optimal thing. And so that's what we eventually did. We had to pay $7,000 to have broadband brought into, a cable brought to our house because we live a little bit rural. And once we did that and they turned the router on, we could feel it. I walked around the corner towards that room and I could feel like I was hit like a wall of energy and started getting headaches. And I was like, this is not happening in our house. So we shut it off and we got the kind of router where you can turn the Wi-Fi off and got the cables, the Cat9 cables. And my ex-husband wired the house. Probably took him a Saturday morning for like $40, and we've got these cables around. They're not attractive, but it does give us hardwired. I'm talking to you now on a laptop that's hardwired. And so I'm not subjecting myself to that all day. And I really feel that is a huge part of why we can sleep better and have more clarity and have better connection. So we took care of that at home. And then my sons went to a public school after COVID. We moved here during COVID. And the year after COVID, when kids finally went back to schools, we noticed that they started having nosebleeds and were very tired and very cranky, and their grades weren't doing as great as they usually were. And so one day my son came home, and actually I got an email and a call from the teacher saying that my son seemed very depressed. And I talked to him, and he told me about his symptoms, his headaches, his nosebleeds. And because of knowing somewhat about, this issue, I said, well, where are you sitting in comparison to the router at school? And he noticed and then came home the next day and said, Mom, I was sitting right under the router. And when I moved away from it, I started feeling better. Now, I was upset about this because actually, to backtrack a little bit, before my kids even went to school, I contacted the schools and asked about the Wi-Fi, right? I sent them information and they had said, oh, well, we have these new routers, and they even gave me the model numbers. And it's all going to be, it's all safe, it's all good. And so I had done some preliminary work, and I had found out that another woman had done preliminary work on it, but they hadn't made, obviously the changes. They had actually installed these wireless access points in every single classroom, and thinking that they were doing a good thing. So when my son said he moved away from them, I said, oh no, so these are not safe, this is not good. And I took him to a psychologist, and he was diagnosed with electromagnetic sensitivity. And I was not in the class, the room when that happened. I did not, persuade him in any way that he had a problem. He talked to her alone, shared his symptoms. And so we then got to work with talking to the school about what the levels were. And I actually went to a parent-teacher night and brought my meter and measured, and the levels were off the charts. The levels were anywhere from 37,000 to over 2.5 million, in the classrooms, depending on whether or not people's phones were on, or whether I was near a router or wireless access point, whatever they call them. So I got to work with educating them, and thank goodness Children's Health Defense gave me access to a lawyer, Scott McCollough, that we could work with. And so it took the better part of a year, and unfortunately we did not have a good outcome, but because they did not decide to plug in, to hardwire any of the classrooms to accommodate him. But I can go into the details if you'd like, of kind of like the steps that we took to address the issue with the school.
That would be very valuable. I'm sure many people listening to this are kind of on the edge of taking this action, but they don't know where to start or what are the right action steps, kind of take it up with the school board. So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the first thing is to get sort of get the reality of the situation, and that is I highly recommend you get the Safe Technologies. Um, I'm so sorry, I'm forgetting the name of it right now. It's green and it's a meter. It's about $400. And I'm going through menopause, so every once in a while my memory does not serve me.
It's from Safe Living Technologies, right? They are a great company that
Yes.
have these EMF meters in Canada and also in the US. Don't know what model. They have many different models, but yeah, for $400, these are models that at least are very accurate for
Yes.
what they offer for the price. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something two. It's has a two in it is the second model that I used. And for your listeners, I will send you a link to this for your listeners. You can provide the information in your webinar later.
Sounds good.
So yeah, Safe Living Technologies is the meter that I used. And so that would be the first thing I would do, is to get a meter that can measure the maximum levels, not just the average levels. So this particular meter can measure the max peak, right? And that's what you want to know, because that's what happens with the frequencies. The pulses go up and down, right? And so if you measure the average, you're not getting a accurate assessment of what the kids are being exposed to. So first thing I would do is to go to the schools. Don't tell them, don't ask them about it. It's none of their business. You just keep the thing in your purse, go to the parent-teacher night. Turn it on, take a photograph, have a second phone with you, somebody come with you, and or just use your phone and take a photo of the measurement, right? Now, to be fair, you should have your phone off probably, just so that you're measuring, what's around you and not your phone. And then I would take the information that's on either our website or your website or Americans Responsible Technology website. There's lots of people now who have information and kits just for schools. In fact, on momsacrossamerica.org, we have one that's from Americans Responsible Technology, which is a safe school technology kit. So give them the information, ask if you could speak with them, ask if you could have a meeting with them, address it with your, I didn't find the PTA to be very useful because they weren't educated on the subject, but you could try to educate them about it. It's always better to have numbers, to have at least 6 people would be very useful to do this. It was just myself and another technology person and my then husband and my son at the time. So we didn't have other people involved. It was just us, and mostly because of COVID, people didn't connect very well then. So first thing is to measure. Second thing is to address the subject with them in a courteous and professional way, and to bring solutions. And those solutions are outlined, a lot of them, in the kit that's provided, such as, so here's one thing we learned. When I spoke to them about their technology, they told me the model number of what they used to have Cisco, and then they had 3900 something. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the model number of the wireless access points that were in the classroom. It was a specific model number they told us. So it's good to get that information. What kind of technology do you use? What are the wireless access points? Just, when you're getting friendly with them and getting connected with them. What I found out during that process and sharing that information with Brennan, who's a wireless technology expert, that's award-winning expert from Ireland, who was working for Children's Health Defense at the time. I saw him on CHD TV and contacted him. And what he told me was that particular model number, there would only need to be 3 per school of say 750 kids, right? 3 per school. It could be shielded, with mesh aluminum shielding. It could be turned down by 90%, the power, and maybe even 99%. I'm sorry, I don't remember which number that was, but it could be turned down significantly, right? Almost entirely turned down, and put in the hallway, not put in the classrooms. And only 3 of them would be needed for a school of 750 students with 1,500 devices. If each one of them had 2 devices, the wireless technology is so effective that, it's really not needed to be turned up 100%. It's not needed to be in every single classroom. It's not needed to be one in, right over their kids' heads. It can be in the hallway. And so that was very disturbing to me. I said, well, then why are they doing this? And he said, because the company that sells these devices gets monthly service fees for every device they sell. So of
Okay.
course,
Yeah.
more is better, right? Doesn't that make sense? More is better. So they're going to say, oh, you need one in every classroom. They're not going to say you only need three per school. If they can sell one in every classroom and convince the technology director that that will give him better coverage, of course, the technology director is going to want to provide the best technology he can to the students. So if the manufacturer tells him, listen, you need one in every classroom, he's going to want to do that. He's not going to want to go against what the manufacturer is telling him. He wants to provide the best service for the students. He wants to do the best job he can. So I understand that. But when somebody tells you a conflicting, opinion, and an expert that's a third party that has no invested interest, I would expect that technology director to listen and to at least try that. And so that's what we came up against, was a power of, basically ego and wills, like, oh, I'm not going to have this, little woman tell me what to do, or, even if she's asking nicely, we're not going to have lawyers telling us what to do. That's not what the manufacturers are saying. We're not going to do that. So we came up against a lot of difficulty there. And of course, their lawyers, the school, would not admit that any of my son's depression or problems, were connected to this technology at all. However, I did learn, after we failed to have them wire the classroom, that I did learn about a year later that when the technology expert that I was working with, her name's Tierney, she's from Blue Ridge EMF Solutions. When she went back to the school and took some measurements some time later, she reported that the power was down by 90%. So they had not told us that they turned the power down.
Wow.
They
Okay.
they didn't, I don't think, wanted to admit it. But she took measurements and the power was down significantly. And so, and as far as I knew at the time, and I don't know if she said this, but somebody said that it was the only school district that had turned the power down by 90% in all of North Carolina. So I'm not sure if that's true now. Hopefully that's not. Hopefully there's other schools that have done that. But what I do know is that my second son, who doesn't have the same type of autoimmune issues as my middle son did, that had the depression from the Wi-Fi, my second son is able to go to that school and is functioning normally. So I do believe that turning down that the power helped significantly. Now, in the meantime, I've also done a Freedom of Information Act type letter and asked them for the budget information on what they're spending on this technology. And I'm not happy with their response. It took them 6 months and they just gave me a lump sum number. I said, no, I wanted a breakdown of what you're spending on the monthly service fees on the wireless access points. And I have not had a response from them. So I would like to, I don't know, potentially I don't know if we have to get more lawyers involved or if we have to get somebody on the school board, elect somebody on the school board that's actually going to be on our side. But that is information that I think everybody has a right to know. What is your school system spending on wireless access points in the classroom? And is it excessive? Are they spending taxpayer dollars on something unnecessarily that's actually causing harm to the children, right? If only 3 of them are needed, like if they refuse to hardwiring is the best thing everybody should do, and the kids should not have cell phones in the classroom. They should be in a Faraday box. They should be in, maybe a shoe, a bag where you put shoes in, that type of thing in the back door or something like that, turned off. They should be, put away. The cell phones are not needed in the classroom at all. If there is an emergency, they can call the front desk. The front desk person can come get your child, and vice versa. Absolutely, the cell phones are not needed in the classroom. So that would significantly lower the radiation for kids. First of all, and then second of all, having the classrooms hardwired and having any laptop use or, projection on the screen. I mean, they used to do that. Projection on the screen was fine, and kids used workbooks. And actually, it's been scientifically proven that writing things out causes more memory retention than typing things out on a laptop. So going back to pieces of paper and workbooks and speaking, standing up and speaking in the information is far better for students than typing on a laptop. But, there are powers that be that want every child to be on a laptop, like Google. They are gathering our students' data. by having them work on laptops. They're getting their eyeballs on screens at a very early age, getting them addicted to the technology. And it's showing in our children's behavior. It's showing, their depression, the nosebleeds, the headaches, eye troubles. More and more kids and people are having eye troubles because of so much exposure to blue screen. And it's very, very depressing because the sad thing is when they did not hardwire the classroom, my son he chose to stay home his entire senior year of high school and homeschool himself pretty much. He was past beyond what I could really teach him at that time. So he pretty much taught himself, and he was isolated and lonely, and unfortunately turned to self-medication, vaping and things like that. And those chemicals seriously affected him. And he hasn't been diagnosed, but there's he himself will admit that he has maybe some psychosis going on, and it's really affected his life and his capability in the world. And it's heartbreaking, honestly. It's hard. My son has hopefully not received permanent damage, but his life has been, he's not able to go to college. He is holding down a job now, but that has been tenuous. It's been problematic, and he's really struggling. So every day he's doing a little bit better, and I'm very hopeful. But his life was really severely altered by exposure to long-term exposure in close proximity to wireless access points. And to sum that up, I would say it's the close and constant exposure to wireless radiation that is destroying our children's health, in conjunction with exposure to toxins, chemicals and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And ironically, the wireless is making all other toxicants even worse, in the sense it's preventing us from properly detoxifying from all these other toxins. I think it's yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's tough. I have a 6-year-old at home. I'm only thinking about what you might be going through as a parent with your son struggling later in life. It's tough because we're trying to shield them as best as we can from as many of these toxins and toxicants as possible, but we can only do so much. But I think you did great still trying to get the school to adopt a safer amount of wireless radiation. It's a very uphill battle. And something else that some activists shared with me that might be a solution is convincing the school to open the wireless access points when they need them, and the rest of the time they would stay turned off. That's a possibility also.
That's what they said the routers are that they only come on when there's a beacon calling for it. But the problem is, if they don't manage every single cell phone being turned off, they're always on.
Oh,
do you know what I'm saying? If there's even one cell phone in the classroom that's on, it's going to be a beacon or one laptop. So that has to be carefully monitored. And also the power could be turned down. They don't need to have the beacon power, on so high. But yes, there are routers where that only come on when there's a device that's calling for it. And if the school and the teachers are managing it so that there's only one device and the teacher has control over that's turning it on or off, then that makes sense. That's a great idea. But otherwise, I'm unsure on how they're managing that. If the cell phones are on, maybe they have it set so that cell phones and that it's not the same connection. But if it's Wi-Fi, it's Wi-Fi. It's going to be trying to tune into that. So I don't know how that works. That we're in a way that makes that successful. I do know that we had several meetings with the school, so it takes a lot of dedication to bring this issue, to them and their awareness. I feel for anybody who's going through this. It's not easy, to educate people, to have them learn something that is counter to what they're being told. We need to be very professional and nice. You need to get along and be courteous and be respectful and acknowledge people for what they're doing, you know, really acknowledge that we're all trying to have a safe space for our children. We're all trying to support them, really acknowledge them for the work that they're doing, and bring solutions to them as much as possible. And that would be things like, you know, hardwiring, like you can actually bring a technician that can show them, you know, like I actually got estimates and a technician and try to show them that it would only cost about $1,000. And, you know, there's, I think we even offered to pay for it. I mean, there was just like, we tried everything, you know. We tried this with another school as well. There was a different school we were trying to get to him to go to for his senior year, and they refused us as well. But that would only have cost about $1,000 to hardwire that whole section of the school that he would have been in. So we tried in many ways to do this, but I am hopeful because more and more information is coming out with summits like yours and with more and more experts, you know, raising awareness about this. So the another thing I did was I started a Facebook page for Buncombe County parents and started posting a lot of information about EMFs and Wi-Fi on there. And another thing we did is during one of the, it was either football night or a concert, we put flyers out on all of the cars telling people of this issue and directing them to the Facebook page. So then people would go to the Facebook page and learn more. So I didn't gather like a whole group of parents that way because it's very difficult to connect with the parents when they drive in and drop off, and you can't hand anything out to the parents in the drop off line or the drive-in through line. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have kids in sports at that time, so that was challenging. So I would recommend people join the PTA or clubs or just try to get connected with the parents at the schools better than I did, because it's very helpful to do that. And then once you have a group of parents, you can address it better. And talking one-on-one with the school technology director and the principal is the best way to go. We also had the assistant superintendent of the county get on our side by talking to the assistant superintendent. So the assistant superintendent is the school technology director's boss, right? So you want to go to that person as well. We also went to the school board, and I can give you some links for some of the talks that we did at our school board. My son, my then husband at the time, and myself, we spoke on the school board. So, and I think like we might just be some of the first or second people doing this. Maybe the third or fourth group of people doing this will have more success. But we did have success with having the power turned down. So it is hopeful, and it can be done. And it is safer now for students all across the whole county, you know, so I'm very happy about that. And I hope that other people will have success with their schools as well.
Well, I think your efforts are commendable. You know, if we have one parent per state in the US and one per province in Canada, that will be sufficient to actually create a movement in a sense, because not a lot of people actually take action, do something with the information and say, well, I'm going to make a few phone calls, let them know about the information, see how they react. And then once you bring this to an awareness level that is high enough, well, you know, maybe people are starting to notice, school boards and directors, and, you know, people are going to be, well, you know, I hear about this constantly. It must be an issue, right? So this is really, I think, how you turn this into a grassroots movement, which it already is, but I think many more people need to be involved for it to gain steam. Please let us know in closing, moms across America, how can people read about the information you have? I know you have published incredible reports on certain environmental toxins in foods. There's a lot of ways that people can get involved with the organization. What is the purpose of that organization, and what can people expect if they join this movement?
Great, thank you. Yeah, Moms Across America is a national coalition of unstoppable moms, but our mission is to educate and empower mothers and others with actions and solutions to create healthy communities. So we have dads, we have students, we have all aunties and uncles, teachers, all kinds of people. And we have on our website, if you go to momsacrossamerica.org or .com, both will get you there. We have a drop down under action, and there's a section that's wireless radiation. There's another section that's safe school technology. And also on our blog, we have an article that says, does your school technology director know how to reduce wireless radiation exposure to children? And that's the most recent article with it's some information about my most recent experience that I just shared with you, and a lot of really good videos and data and technology that we learned along the way. So I don't want people to have to start from scratch. Please use what we've learned. Please take it to your school technology director. Use Americans for Responsible Technology information. And also join us on our Monday Night Moms Connect calls at 7 p.m., where we talk about issues like this. Mostly we talk about GMOs, glyphosate, what's going on in the food supply, all types of health solutions. And so it's a discussion. It's not a show. I do most of the talking, but we do encourage people to share their information as well. And sometimes we have experts on the show. So we appreciate people getting involved that way. You can also please donate to help us with, right now we're doing a lot of food testing, and that food testing for school lunches and fast food, gluten-free food, baby formula has led to really raising a lot of awareness, and I think has greatly contributed towards the current movement to get pesticides and food dyes and all that out of the food system. So we're very happy about the progress there, and a most recent Safe School Meals Act that was presented by Cory Booker, linking to our work. So please do help us get that bill passed. And I do want to mention that as you talked about, protecting your kids, that when kids are exposed to EMFs, it does cloud their thinking. They get circular thinking, they get depressed, and then they seek things that aren't as good for them, right? They eat junk food. Mm-hmm. They play more video games. They use Bluetooth headphones. Once they start their brain starts getting scrambled, they just start making poor choices for their health. So eliminating the EMFs and eating the healthy foods, they're in tandem, right? It's one and the other. And if they're doing one, they're going to probably lean towards doing the other. So you really want to address both, and they're very, very important. And so thank you for bringing awareness to this issue and allowing me to share about my experience in hopes that it will help others.
Well, thank you so much for your presence. I know it will be so useful to so many parents and grandparents listening to this who want to take action and at least minimize the amount of radiation that their children or that their children are exposed to. I think this is the minimum we can start doing, and I'm very, very excited for people to connect with your organization and get involved. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you to everybody.
I really hope that you liked this presentation. If you want to take action on what you just heard, you'll find links to everything that was mentioned by our guest speaker right underneath this interview. If you love this summit and want to own the recordings in audio, video, and written form for all of these 2025 interviews, make sure to click the buttons on this page to get the 2025 EMF pack. This EMF pack is heavily discounted during the summit launch and for a very limited time. Remember that every purchase supports my work as an independent citizen journalist, as well as the nonprofit partners that are associated with this summit. Thank you for your attention and support, and I'll see you in the next presentation.